Alright, just gonna make a quick video here. So anyways, I'm Tom. I've been making YouTube videos for a while and trying to make some practical ones just to help people. A lot of people aren't used to cooking or aren't used to cooking meat. So this is just a real basic video on some cooking some ground beef. I know a lot of people don't have a lot of money and don't have a lot of skill, so they get bored just eating ground beef. So last night I was in a conference call and somebody was asking for some ideas, and I told them that sometimes I dress up the ground beef like chili. So it's basically like chili, but it's made just out of ground beef. So anyways, let's get started. I'll show you can make this real quick. So here we go. We got a pan. I put a little bit of this duck fat in there. I've been using the duck fat because it's a little higher in K2 than other meats, and K2 is a vitamin that helps the body move calcium around, basically. And I had a coronary artery calcium scan done earlier this year, and I had a score of 8, which is basically a relatively low score. As I recall, that indicates that I have less than 10% chance of developing heart disease, or at least coronary artery blockage. And so it's not particularly concerning, but of course I'm curious as to whether I can completely reverse it and get it down to 0, which is more ideal. And K2 is believed to facilitate the removal of the calcium on the plaques in the arteries. So anyways, we got the pan warm. This is just regular ground beef that you buy at the market. This isn't grass-fed or anything, because it's kind of doing this with people in mind who don't have a lot of money or who aren't used to shopping a lot. Don't necessarily know where to source ground beef. So we're just going to put a quarter of this big package in the pan, and then we're going to season it up. Now, some people just use salt. I've been using the Redmond's real salt a lot. I got this bag here when I was actually on vacation at an Amish store. They sold stuff in bulk, and it's lasted quite a while. It's a couple of years worth of salt in one bag. So, but you don't have to use that. A lot of people like the Himalayan pink salt because both of these salts have a lot of minerals in it, so people feel like they're getting mineral fortified. But you can use regular white table salt. In theory, these other salts are, they're deposits from dried up seabeds. Supposedly the excuse me, the Redmond real salt is the purest of them all, and it comes from the United States, whereas the pink salt comes from the Himalayan pink salt actually comes from Pakistan. There's some pink salt, and I don't think it's necessarily all that important, but most people like a little salt on their meat, but you don't have to. Some people don't use other seasonings, but in the interest of helping somebody who wants a little more variety and doesn't really mind having some seasonings, we're just going to do a basic, easy chili. We're going to turn this ground beef into something that tastes like traditional chili. So here's some chili powder that you can just buy at the supermarket or wherever. It contains some chili pepper, and I think it said ground cumin and cayenne pepper. So there's already a little bit of cayenne pepper in here. For people who like spicy food, I know I grew up in Southern California where spicy food is really common. So I just sprinkle it on. I don't measure it. Yeah, the food's not necessarily going to come out the same every time. And then this is cayenne, this is ground cayenne pepper, which tends to be pretty spicy. So you don't want too much of that unless you really like hot food. Um, just spread that on and sprinkle it around, and then I like stirring the meat after that. So that's basically it. I've seasoned it. It's cooking, and then we can add a little more flavor. This is a can of green chilies. These are mild green chilies. They're already cooked. There's usually chilies like this are either fire roasted or steam peeled, so the skins are gone. They usually do include the seeds, which can irritate some people, and of course they're probably from a nightshade family, which could bother some people. But I don't seem to have a problem with them, and it's a flavor I'm used to. So I'm just gonna cut this can open right here, and I'm just gonna add them in. So here we go. Just a little bit of canned flavor there. Naturally, if you could pick some chilies out of your garden and fix them up, it'd probably be healthier than something out of a can. But as I recall, that it's basically just chilies and water and salt, so it's not like a whole bunch of chemicals in there. So it should be relatively healthy. It really just depends on the individual and what they can tolerate, you know. So I just kind of mix it and then cook it. And that's it. That's really all you need to do. It's just then from there you're just cooking it to whatever sort of level of cookness that you prefer. If you want a little more flavor, I was just thinking, here's some Parmigiano Reggiano, which is, most people probably are familiar with Parmesan, but it's an Italian cheese. It's a dry cheese, and these drier aged cheeses tend to be high in K2 and also leucine. Leucine is one of those amino acids that's prevalent in beef, and leucine is one of the amino acids that's really good for building muscle. So there's sort of a threshold. I think you want to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 grams of leucine or something like that to inspire muscle growth, or facilitate muscle growth. So you can put a little Parmesan on like that. I avoid cheeses that aren't aged because I've had psoriasis and potentially the casein A1, which comes from typically like a Holstein cow, or basically any cow that doesn't have what they call the A2 genetics, will produce a protein that can cause psoriasis to flare up and other autoimmune diseases. So if I'm going to eat cheese, I tend to stick to the aged cheeses. The organisms that make the cheese have broken down a lot of the proteins at that point, so they tend to be less irritating to people with allergies or autoimmune disease or something like that. So anyways, I'm just going to let this simmer a little bit. I typically don't cook my food on high heat, so I like it cooked at lower temperatures. I like to keep things moist, and I don't like a big mess. So that's basically it. So if you're looking for an idea just how to dress up some ground beef, I think I spent maybe 50 cents on those chilies. And this is, like I said, this is relatively inexpensive ground beef. This is fresh ground chuck, and they grind it at the store every day, which is nice. And it's about I think it's about $3.80 a pound right now. So it's relatively affordable for people who don't have much of a budget. I can get grass finished beef for about $5.5 to maybe $7. Sometimes I see at places it's a little more. It's like 10. Steaks are quite a bit more expensive if you want to get grass finished, and if you could afford it, go for it. But I know a lot of people can't afford it. I typically buy the grass finished ground beef for myself, but since in this video I wanted to just show people how inexpensive they could prepare a meal, and or how inexpensive it could be just to eat ground beef. I just went with the regular sort of ground beef that you can get anywhere. So anyways, that's about it. It's real simple. Of course, there's lots of spices you could use, but a lot of people like chili. They're kind of familiar with the flavor, so I figured that was a good theme, and it's something I enjoy personally. So there you go, some all meat chili with a little bit of green chilies in it, a little cayenne pepper, a little chili powder, and of course maybe a dash of salt and some Parmesan cheese. I don't really waste time with measuring everything out, because I kind of just work it out the way I like it, and I kind of just have a feel for it, and I'm usually in a hurry, so I'm trying to prep some meals and get to work, you know, and take them with me. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time measuring and everything. I'm going to do everything quick, and I'm sure there's a lot of other busy people out there. So this is not a master class from a 5-star chef. This is just practical eating for the everyday person. So anyways, thanks for watching. If you would like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. If you want to give me advice on making better videos, that's fine too. So thanks again, and I'll see you online.